Welcome to FlamesNation Radio, episode 45. I'm Ryan. He's Shane, wearing a sweet hat. Hi, Shane.
Hey, everybody.
As usual, we're delivered by DoorDash and by Eau Claire Distillery's Shrimpers Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. It's World Junior season for some reason in August. It's pandemic years, folks, where 2 years feels like 20, and it's the World Juniors. Originally, the 2022 World Juniors were held in December from Boxing Day to June or to January, whatever. But of course, a few days into that tournament, for various reasons, everyone got COVID and they had to reschedule. So Flames prospect Matt Coronato is the only representative of the Calgary Flames at this tournament. This is I love the consistency, Shane. So the first game that the United States played in the 1.0 version of the 2022 World Juniors, Matt Coronato had a pretty nice assist. And in the first game against Germany of 2.0 World Juniors 2022, he had a pretty nice assist. I don't know. Yeah, if folks, if you were watching, check the TSN feed, check the FlamesNation Twitter feed, as we're trying to post Coronato highlights as often as they appear. And thankfully, with Coronato, he's good.
That happens a fair amount.
So let me just set the stage, folks. And you know, it'd be helpful if while you're listening to this, open another tab in your browser and just watch the zone entry on a loop, because it's just a thing of beauty. So Matt Coronato, the United States are on a 5-minute power play, and Coronato is on the second line for Team USA with Matt Nees and Logan Cooley. Yep. Matt Nees is a Toronto prospect. Logan Cooley, probably our buddy Mike Gould has pictures of him on his locker with hearts drawn
his
out.
Phone screen is just Logan Cooley right now. Him and
Cooley,
Dylan Gunther.
Yeah, Logan Cooley, very good. And Coronato, Coronato, during the second unit power play, during the first period of this game, he goes to the neutral zone. And if you're going to the neutral zone, he has the awareness to notice that, hey, I have some room here. So he just says, I'm just going to go into the zone and see how far they let me get. And one of Germany's defenders tries to contest the zone entry just by sort of skating towards him and sort of moving in for a poke check.
Check to the board. Yeah.
And without breaking stride, he basically whooshes to one side, whooshes to the other side, doesn't lose speed, doesn't lose puck control, just full speed ahead, goes whoop, and there's right around him, and then puts a pass right on the stick of Logan Cooley for a nice goal.
Had all day to make that pass too.
Yeah, and he had all day to make that pass because, one, it's a power play, so they have more room, and two, he's smart enough to know how to open himself up time and space. We have been talking about Matt Coronato, A, since he was drafted, because he was very, very good in his draft year, and B, especially since I'd say about February of 22, because a couple of his teammates went to the Olympics. The NHL for various reasons, mostly pandemic related, decided not to send its players to China for the Olympics, and that opened the door for a lot of players, like a couple of Harvard's players. And for Coronato went from being a good middle six guy for Harvard. He was good, not great. He was reliable. He was good. He was trending upward. But he was one of those guys you could go, man, next season when he gets more ice time, he's going to be very good. Next season came very quickly for him because a couple of his teammates went off to the Olympics and he got a bigger role. He was on the power play more often, penalty kill more often, first unit everything basically. And he was the reason why Harvard made the NCAA national tournament. Harvard was, by the pairwise, the NCAA, for folks who are weirdly aware of the nuances of how they see the national tournament, they use what's called the pairwise system, which essentially looks at your team's record against the teams below them. And essentially, if you're tops and pairs wise, that means you beat everybody. And that means you beat all the guys that beat the other teams too. So basically, you get the wins of the teams that you beat. Mm-hmm. So Harvard they were okay. They were an above average to fairly good college team, but in their own conference, they were about, I'd say, third or fourth. I think they were good. Fourth. They were in the mix, but pairwise rankings wise, they were about 18th, 19th before the tournament. So they were in a situation where they had to win their regional tournament, their conference tournament, to get the automatic berth in the national championship, because the national championship tournament is the conference champions, and then basically the remaining best teams in the pairwise. And if they were just a remaining team, they wouldn't have made it. So because Matt Coronato went on a heater for the last 2 months of the season, especially during 3-4 weeks in the playoffs, they made the national tournament. They didn't go very far in the national tournament, but they made it because he just basically became their best player for 2 months and said, I'm leading the way, boys, jump on my back.
And so, he got that beautiful overtime winner to get him to the Frozen Four too. Like in round 8, he come on top of the circles, turn around, and just sniped one right in through traffic. It was
like they made the national tournament because he was clutch. He was so clutch.
He found the space. He like you said, he found space out there, he
has a goal scorer's mentality. He actually in the first game against Germany, he led the USA in shots on goal. So I mean, he's a volume shooter, but as you've seen, he shoots from anywhere around the net. So he's the kind of guy where he's going back to school this year, and most players who go back to Harvard or who play at Harvard usually go for 2 years. 2 years is about average for Harvard players, unless you're really, really amped up about school. You go for 2 years. If you're really amped up about school, maybe you go for three tops. But if you're Matt Coronato, you hate to say that the Flames losing Gaudreau and Tkachuk was a blessing in disguise, because I don't think it really impacted their ability to add a Coronato. Let's say the NCAA championship, the NCAA, the regular season ends at the end of February, playoffs about 2-3 weeks after that. So
like we're late March.
Yeah. So we're thinking like 2 weeks after the trade deadline, 2-3 weeks after the trade deadline is when everything but the national championship tournament, like the Final Four, the national semis and national final, have happened. So unless Harvard goes to the big dance, unless they make the Final Four, and they might because they're going to be a good team this year, realistically, Matt Coronato could be joining the Flames by about mid to late March. And if you're the Flames, you go, he's physically, he seems to have taken a step. He seems a bit faster. He's a bit thicker. We saw him on that goal that got disallowed, just sort of crashing and banging in front of the net. He's willing to park himself in front of the net and take some abuse in order to get a goal. So that's a good sign. But he's also a guy that potentially he's going to be a key, if not the key player on a good to very good college program, and then gets tapped on the shoulder and, they'll probably fly out Conroy to sign to a contract, because that's what Connie always seems to do.
Father Christmas.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the season goes for him, because he's starting off, you're starting it off with a fairly big time tournament, big time hockey. And granted, he plays one game. The second game for the United States is on Thursday night against Latvia or against Switzerland.
Yep. And Switzerland played a good game against the Swedes.
Yeah, on Wednesday, Sweden won 3-2 against Switzerland. But Switzerland, for anyone who's been following international hockey, it's basically the story of the last few years have been, Czechia has been good. Slovakia the last couple of years has really come on. But the Czechs or the Swiss have been really consistent for probably the last 10-15 years. Basically, anyone old enough to remember Sven Baric's draft year, that this push for Swiss hockey into the upper tier of international hockey, especially junior hockey, has been going on for about a decade and a half, and they're legit. Like they don't win a lot, but they're in every game. They make you work for it.
It helps when you get players that rise to prominence like Roman Josi and Nico Hischier and icons from your country that the kids can look up to and spark interest in the game over there. So Hischier going first overall, Josi turning into a stud. They were talking about even getting 100 points this last year with like 15 games to go, and it was very possible. So
and honestly, it's
good for Switzerland.
We talk about representation in a lot of different aspects and a lot of different respects, and representation in every possible meaning of the sense of the word is really important. Just ask 2 random white dudes from Canada. But I'd say representation for smaller countries, international hockey, like Germany, don't undersell how important it is for grassroots hockey in Germany to have Leon Draisaitl as a damn good tippity top player, to have Austin Matthews for hockey in the Sun Belt, to, I think anytime you can have communities, places of the world, any kind of representation, any kind of increased representation in places that haven't historically been involved in hockey, it just makes the game better. and we talked about women's hockey in the past, and when, probably when there's more, high end international hockey to talk about during the year, we'll do our best to talk about it. And hopefully we'll twist some arms and get someone to come on with us who's more credible than us to talk about it. Cause women's hockey is just fun. Just like, junior hockey most of the time is very fun. But I just think, it's so cool to see Germany, Switzerland, like remember that year, was it the year that I'm gonna butcher, I'm gonna misremember the year, so I apologize to all my.
You're talking about the year they went to the Final Four?
No, I was talking about that too, but I'm talking about remember the Japanese team during.
I do.
Yeah, and actually I remember vividly the last women's tournament in Japan. And I remember like the women's team scored a bunch of goals. I don't think they won at all or very much, but just like the cool thing for seeing, that home crowd to see their home country score goals in the Olympics. So I'm so jazzed to see smaller countries and countries that haven't had international success find ways of breaking through. Latvia's only in this tournament this time because of the Russia and Belarus of it all, which, it's, they're here for shitty reasons, but it's not, I'm so excited to see what Latvia can do with this opportunity, because
they pushed Canada a bit today. It was 1-1 after one, and they only lost 5-2, I think, to a Canadian team with a generational talent on it. So Connor Bedard is nuts, people. He's nuts.
But that's the whole thing. It's like I think sometimes we look at things from sort of like the North American perspective, being like, yeah, Canada, and now to a lesser extent the United States are always good and they're always expected to be good. Same with Sweden. Like there's 3 or 4 countries that are always going to be good.
Sweden, Russia, US, Canada is kind of the main 4. Finland's
sort of the fifth team.
Yeah.
But now I think like it's if you find yourself at home with not much going on, turn on some of these games, watch as much as you feel comfortable or able to watch. But just it's so important for some of these smaller countries having these good showings against these bigger countries, against Canada, the US. Like these are the teams that, it's like if you're playing the Stanley Cup champions and you're a rebuilding team, you want to see how far you can push them. You want to see if you can do it, because pushing these teams is going to be huge for their development.
And I'm going to say, don't be shy to watch some games that are not maybe Canada, US, or Canada involved. I went to the entire World Juniors when it was in Calgary in 2012. I went to every single game, including Latvia was at that tournament too. And I found out that there was this young player, he was really young at the time, named Zemgus Girgensons. And I was like, that kid's pretty good. I was only 18, but I was like, that kid's pretty good. He looks like he could play in the show. And
the pride of Latvia.
Years later, he's been a staple. He's only 4th line guy, but I mean, you need those in the NHL.
Yeah.
Guys
and honestly,
like jobs. So
think about Norway. Like Norway has, Emilio Peterson knocking on the door for NHL job at some point. But like, think about how important it was for that country. Matt Zuccarello just making it.
Oh,
that's incredible. Like it's so,
and his comeback story. And Zuccarello's coming. Zuccarello had to relearn how to speak. He had a brain injury.
But yeah,
he's nuts. And
he's a legit national hero in Norway because he broke through. He broke with the first guy to break through. And I'm just, who's next for Norway? Who's next for Latvia? Who's next? Like that? Those are some of the question, exciting stories that come out of these tournaments. And like Slovakia, 5-10 years ago was where Latvia is now. And so
the Czech Republic, if you just watch the Hlinka, the Czech Republic's got this kid coming that was doing amazing things over there. They've got a few of them, but the Edward Salle, that kid put on a show. He put on a show, and make no mistake, you're going to hear his names in the first round rankings all the way through, because he did some things that he got noticed. And that's why these tournaments matter for these young guys, because not a lot of scouts can get over there to watch them on a day-to-day basis. And if they show up and they perform against the best level of competition that's at their age, it goes a long way. So they're motivated, even though this tournament's in the middle of summer, the players are motivated. It's still some of the best hockey you can watch.
And to be very polite as to not cast aspersions on the tournament necessarily. The tournament runs until August 20th. If you've watched television, you've seen good seats are still available. If you go to if you're in the Edmonton area, you got some time, you want to check out some hockey, world juniors, put on your shades. The brightest stars in junior hockey are going to be playing this summer again until August 20th. So check it out. Shane, here's my question for you, sir. So obviously the Flames have a few pretty good prospects knocking on the door. We mentioned Coronato, and I'm really curious your perspective. Like disclosure at the site, starting in about a week, we're going to start counting down the top 20 Flames prospects that we see. We did our annual panel. We all voted. Now we're going to be counting down. I believe the first edition of that countdown, the folks who didn't get votes, starts on August 15th, so this coming Monday, and runs straight through till basically when training camp starts. But Shane, so we're going to spoil some of this, but this won't be a surprise. The top 2 or 3 guys, we talked about Coronato. Coronato is in the mix for the top 2 or 3. The other 2 guys who get a lot of representation and on our voting and got a lot of buzz last season were Dustin Wolf, the reigning American Hockey League goaltender of the year, and
contractually obligated to call him that.
And Jacob Pelche, who's on the all rookie team. So my question is, so right now, who do you see as the Flames top prospect amongst those 3? Unless there's someone I'm not mentioning, but amongst I think amongst our voting panel, most of everyone had those 3 guys, 1, 2, 3 in some order.
I was the oddball, and believe it or not, I had Dustin Wolf. I was the only one who didn't have Dustin Wolf ranked 1. That's because goalies are voodoo. Even though Dustin Wolf has been and won at every level he's played so far, goalies are still voodoo. And I like a good forward that is producing as more of a surefire shot than a goaltender. I've said it before, and I stole it from Daryl. I know 2 things about goalies: big saves, bad goals. Dustin Wolf tends to do both really well, so he still ranks high in my books. I am not going to understate what Jonathan Huberdeau being here will do for Jacob Pelche and his growth, but I still pick Coronato. It's still Coronato to me. I think he's got that little extra oomph that they haven't had for a long time. He is like we talked about it. We talked about his past there. He's still a pure shooter. He said he shoots from everywhere. Well, it's because he's got if you're the guy with the best shot on the ice, you should be shooting the puck.
I'll say this. So Dustin Wolf has been the top goaltender in the league he's been playing in for the last 3 years. And for me, the big question, I didn't have Coronato 1. And the reason I didn't have Coronato 1 is simply just, I don't know how it's going to translate to the pros. And that's nothing against him, because I'm like, okay, he was really good in the USHL. Will he be able to do that against grown-ass men in a very good college conference? And the answer was, the first part of the season, yeah, somewhat. And then at the end of the year, definitely yes. He made very nice adjustments. And to be honest, he made adjustments when he was going from prep league hockey in New York and New Jersey to playing in the USHL, a very good league, in a very good program. So I think that, but here's the reason why I had Dustin Wolf ahead. And I toyed. I can't remember where I had Pelche. I had Pelche very high.
You had 3. I have it up here. You went Wolf, Coronato, Pelche. Coronato, Pelche was unanimous top 3 amongst all of us.
Yeah. So Pelche. The thing with Pelche is, I don't know if Pelche will have the impact ceiling that Coronato could or Wolf could, because the goalie, if he translates, he basically dictates the game. And Coronato is a goal scorer. But Wolf has never played the NHL. He's sat on the bench twice and gotten paid fairly well for it. And I think, he did everything you could possibly ask a 21-year-old goaltender to do in the American League. And you can make a good case for Coronato having one of the better freshman seasons of, I don't think he was quite Johnny Gaudreau good his freshman year, but no. Johnny Gaudreau's a freak. He's a freak of nature.
Johnny Gaudreau is a unicorn. I call them unicorns.
But
they come along every once in a while.
The reason why I'm really high on Pelche, and I think Pelche deserves his due, is because Pelche has been Jacob Pelche. He came in as a 16, 17-year-old in the queue. He was at every international tournament. He was really reliable two-way, all 3 zones, 200-foot guy. Pelche has been playing Pelche's game, fearless, breakneck, basically, he's basically a French-Canadian version of Mangiapane in terms of his speed, his tenacity, the bite to his game. And he's about, I'd say, maybe 20 pounds. Actually, no, I think he's maybe like 10 pounds lighter than the bread man, but he'll put on some
bread
weight.
man's also has a few extra years with the pro gym trainers too, right?
And I think that's like the fact that Pelche was able to translate his game from the Q to the AHL, the land of giants at times, and he just got it right away. It took him maybe a week or 2 weeks, or like by like the end of his first 7 games, he had sort of figured it out. And he was super consistent. He was very good on, granted, he had the benefit of Mike, we hear you, Matthew Phillips on his flank, and a rotating carousel of very good centers.
Ruzicka was a great center.
He played at times with Godin, who's very good, Ruzicka, who's very good, with occasionally Byron Fraze, also very good. Like, he did not ever play with a bad AHL center. And so
he had a center that knew what that was needed to be done and like defensively. Yeah, Pelche at the World Juniors, the 2021 World Juniors, when camp started, people were questioning whether or not he'd even make the team, but he always is the defensive motor of his line. Yeah. He's always in the right spot. He's always back. He knows how to forecheck. He knows how to go into group scrums.
He's got, I would argue, Backlund's defensive awareness combined with Mangiapane's tenacity. So I do not know if Jacob Pelche will ever be a really impactful offensive player. Offensively, his ceiling might be second line, but he's going to be potentially like a Frolik level, like just he'll, look at Michael Frolik. Michael Frolik was Michael Frolik basically from when he broke into the NHL until like his body basically sort of slowed down a bit and he wasn't quite Michael Frolik anymore. And then he sort of went into his farewell tour a bit. But Frolik for about over a decade just played hard minutes and did it well and he did so many things to make your team, your lives easier. So I think Coronato is going to be the guy who's going to be on the more highlight reels, as we've seen already this week. Mm-hmm. But I think Pelche, the
defensive acumen gets put aside a lot of times. Like, people don't mention it. The scorers are the ones that get the attention, but it's even more, if not even more important than the goals, is making sure they don't go in your own net and being able to work in a system that a coach has in place and not deviate from it or try to do your own thing and know how to build the mold. Pelche is a team player all the way, does what's asked of him, does it well, learns how to do it quickly, and thrives, and then just grows from there. He's learning to see the ice better. And one more time, I cannot understate how important Jonathan Huberdeau is going to be for him. Having another French-Canadian player in that locker room, he can ask him any question, anything he wants to learn.
And let's be honest here. I think, let's put it this way. I think it was pretty tough to be Matthew Tkachuk his first year, Sam Bennett his first year, Johnny Gaudreau to a certain extent his first year, because I've been covering the
first 6 games.
Like Sven Baertschi, there was the big questions about, he was touted as like the savior of the franchise. I think at one point Jay Feaster referred to him as the team's next face after Jerome McGinley, and I think that was just he was
mean.
I really like Sven. I think
he also said Jankowski was going to be the best player in his draft class. So
I mean,
Jay went big.
They were confident. They were confident in their guys. But I mean, like Monahan, his first year, got up a lot of attention early. He had the benefit of having Giordano and other guys around. Bennett came in. He came in late in the season and he got a lot of attention. I think there's a lot. It's tough being a high end prospect or a high end draft pick. Gaudreau, when he came in with so much hype after being so good in college. I think the nice thing with Pelche is, if I've seen a lot of folks penciling him in potentially as a third line winger alongside Monahan. Who knows what happens in camp? But I think if he makes the team, the benefit for him will be, they'll have, he's not going to be the shiny new toy. You're going to have Mackenzie Weegar, you're going to have Huberdeau, you're going to have any number of other people on the team in there, and he'll get his attention. But I mean, you're going to have a lot of other guys, Lindholm with his Selke finalist, plaque. I assume they get something for finishing second. Vezina runner up, Jacob Markstrom. Like, they have a lot of guys who had good years who are going to get a lot of attention. And I think, again, like having Huberdeau there, somebody from the same part of the country, also a bilingual guy, someone who's just able to who's been there. Like Huberdeau came in and he was a highly touted player, and granted, more
so than Pelche ever was.
He was a high draft pick, and granted, he was playing in South Florida, and I don't think the media attention in South Florida is the same as the media attention in Calgary, but he had to go through it. And I think if the idea is you want to set up your kids for success, him being able to, Pelche being able to be mentored potentially by someone who's been there, done that, gotten to the other side, and turned out to be a very excellent professional hockey player at the NHL level, that's only going to be good for him. And, they're going to be able to do the same kind of thing with Coronato, because if Coronato starts, Coronato will potentially come in like March. And
it'll Coronato of it all, like I when he slowed down, that he should have. He went from playing guys his own age to guys that were 4 years older than him. So when he finally had time to figure it out and find the space, he thrived. He's got a whole season.
He was doing that while, like, guys, this will, as they said in Legally Blonde, it's hard. Harvard's not for everybody. Like, no. Harvard is tough, and I think we discount, for especially, the big transitions in people's lives, professional hockey and otherwise. You're going from, like if you're Pelche's first year, he was going from living with billets in Moncton, and I forget where he played at the end after he left Moncton.
Val
d'Or. Thank you. But yeah, he was playing in the queue, living with billets, to going to live on his own and rooming with guys. And you got to figure out how to not starve to death and not to burn down the place trying to cook chicken parm, and also adjust to playing against hockey against 30-year-old guys. This is how they make the living. Same with Coronato. Like, Coronato going from playing in the USHL against guys much younger than him in some cases, and smaller and everything else, and doing high school stuff, to suddenly, holy crap, you're in friggin' Harvard, and you're playing on a team that's Harvard has been very good for a while. They've been consistently good under Ken Donato. And so the expectation is they're going to stay good. So if you're playing for Harvard, you got to make sure you're learning your stuff, off the ice.
Yeah, they don't go out and just recruit anybody. Like, they don't just go hand out recruitment passes to anybody. Like, it's an elite school. You have to be invited to play for them. It's not just like you apply and like, hey, I play hockey, come look at me, right? Like, no, Harvard has scouts themselves.
Well, you get recruited, but you also have to meet their academic guidelines too.
You have to have the right GPA to even start to go there. Like, so Coronato's had to have the grades since high school.
Yeah, he's figuring out how to live alone, driven, and also not starve to death, and also how not to flunk out of Harvard, and also you're trying to get ready to play pro hockey in a year or two. So there's a lot of stuff going on that he managed to navigate. And so I'm really curious what ends up happening. Like, this is going to be a fascinating hockey season for the Flames in a lot of different respects. Yes. I think, at the American League level, like, Rory Cairns is going to start playing pro this year. They're going to have those two new defensemen, Yan Kuznetsov and Jeremy Poirier, graduating from the Q.
We don't talk about Kuznetsov enough either, too.
They're going to have, Oscar Dansk trying to push Wolf and make sure that he gets, iron sharpens iron, make sure that he gets into NHL shape before too long. He's pretty damn close. So, but I think for me, the thing I have sort of in the back of my mind is Coronato watch, because I don't think it's a matter of if.
No, it's when. He's growing at an exponential rate. And it's just a pleasure to be able to watch him play against he just went from now playing against men all year. Now he's playing against guys his own age. Now, some of those guys are the same skill level. Most of them are still a little bit below him. That's why he likes to step up. The fact that they slapped Nyes and Cooley with him means the coaching staff understands his value as well, because those are some premier players on that roster. And that's a line that's expected to score goals, and it's a line that's expected to produce for the United States. So it's fun to watch him. He'll be put in lots of situations. Like you said, he got his points on the power play here the other day. It's worth it. Flames fans, tune in. Or heck, if you're in Edmonton, well, if you're a Flames fan in Edmonton, first of all, Sorry.
Our condolences.
Second of all, go to the arena because there's tons. A few seats. I think there might be a few. Open.
And before we go any further, we got to talk about some sad news. Ben Stetler. If you were following the Flames during the Battle of Alberta, you're following the Oilers in any way. And honestly, let's be honest, if you were just paying attention to Canadian hockey in any way of last year, you probably saw, Ben's story. Ben, unfortunately, was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and, he went through any number of just really crappy treatments and, the recovery from them. And he became basically the Oilers mascot. He's that little guy with the chubby cheeks who just shouted, "Play La Bamba, baby." And it was just, it was so much fun. He seemed like he was having a blast, and the Oilers players, whether you like that team or not, seemed like they were really jazzed and energized by his presence. And unfortunately, we found out on Wednesday afternoon, from his father's Twitter account that Ben unfortunately passed away. So, we want to give our shout out to Ben's family and, everyone who was touched by Ben, because, just even from afar, it was such a blast getting to see him experience hockey. And, it's a game and it's meant to be fun, and Ben made it more fun. So we want to give a shout out to them. If you have the means to do so, really encourage you to donate to Kids Cancer Care. I believe is the one in Calgary. There's another one in Edmonton whose name escapes me, but kids children's charities, they do a lot to make the battles from folks, with folks like Ben and other people through this terrible time easier. Makes it's never gonna be fun, but they try to inject some fun into it. So if you have any $5, $10, whatever, anything that you can give them will help. And again, donate in Ben's name, donate in any of your family members' names. But we just want to take some time to give a shout out to Ben and his family, and at a very tough time. Our thoughts are with you, and we hope you guys are doing okay.
A kid brought a lot of heart. Not just to the Oilers organization, but the entire city. The entire province. It was
such a cool kid, and
it was special.
Yeah, and
special.
No matter what side of the Battle of Alberta you were on, I guarantee you Ben made you smile at least once.
Oh, I just thought what they did for that young man, that young kid, Connor McDavid and the Oilers made his life so special.
Yeah,
it's just it was.
If you're a diehard Flames fan, plug your ears for the next 30 seconds. The Oilers org. You remember when Andrew Ference was the captain with the Spider Mabel stuff? They had that little girl who was going through, I believe she was going through another illness, and she dressed up like Spider-Man and basically went on a wacky adventure in the city that the Oilers and Andrew Ference helped out. So I think you can cheer for them or against them, but I think there's obviously a lot of good people working for the organization up Highway 2. So it's always nice. I think there's more. We hear a lot about the bad stories, and there's obviously definitely some bad in the sport, unfortunately. But I think when good stuff happens, you want to think about the good stuff and really put as much a shine on the good stuff as you do put a spotlight on the bad stuff, because ideally the good outweighs the bad, and you gotta do what you can to get rid of the bad, but also make sure that we keep the good in it too. Speaking about good, this will be the most awkward transition we've ever done. So hopefully, folks, you got a chance to go to Montana's the Rib Fest tour stop on Friday. We were told it was a good time. People had some very tasty food and very tasty ribs. The folks at Oilers Nation posted a lot of photos from the trip they had up north. A lot of messy faces. Hashtag Get Montana's Messy. But if you missed the top and are still craving some ribs, we'd strongly encourage you to go to Montana's and check out their all-you-can-eat Rib Fest. It runs from now until September the 12th, and it features all-you-can-eat pork back ribs. And also for a limited time, try their Big Grill Combo. So the Big Grill Combo or Trio Combo includes, Shane, 4 bones of in-house smoked pork back ribs, a fire-grilled chicken breast, both of them sauced to your liking, and here's the key, 2 grilled shrimp skewers brushed with a garlicky Cajun glaze.
For a carnivore like me, that sounds absolutely.
You get 3 kinds of meat, and none of them are pure red meats necessarily. They're all various shades of meat, so you're not going to get too full of too much. And then, of course, they come with freshly baked cornbread and your choice of in-house baked beans or coleslaw and seasoned fries. So again, runs at every Montana's restaurant through September 12th. and of course, September 12th, Flames camp opens the week after there. So if you're going to go to Ripfest, you have a bit of time to get into training camp shape. And yes, round is considered a shape. If you're on the hockey club, probably don't want to be in that shape. But if you're just watching hockey like many of the rest of us, you don't need to be in too good a shape. You just need to be able to get up the stairs. As long as I'm in good enough shape to walk up to the press box, I consider it a good start to the season.
Yeah, if you can successfully hold a beer and a pocket dog and watch the game, you're doing all right, folks.
So Shane, last week we recorded a podcast, and then the day after the podcast, at friggin' 9:00, Brad Living did some more business.
At night too, like at night when I'm finally settling in, I'm like, okay, nothing good is gonna happen. Bam! So dooby-doo, baby.
So Jonathan Huberdeau, as some of you may remember, on I believe the 22nd of July, it was the 22nd. I'm bad at dates, but late July, the Flames acquired Jonathan Huberdeau from the Florida Panthers in exchange as part of the Matthew Tkachuk trade. Matthew Tkachuk signed a long-term deal with the Florida Panthers. It was a sign-and trade, so technically the Flames signed the deal, but Florida negotiated it and said, file this with the league. And then they did so. So it's sort of it's technically a Flames contract, but they had no part in outside of handing it in.
I think Brad said it's the first actual one in league history.
Yeah, because the heart of the sign-and trade is you negotiate it and I'll just file it on your behalf and then trade the guy. So history was made in that respect. History was made with the Huberdeau trade or the Huberdeau contract. So it was smart. 8 years, $10.5 million a year. Very heavy on signing bonuses. I believe $61.5 million in signing bonuses on an $84 million deal. So it is
signing bonuses are about as much as they committed to Monahan. Not more.
Oh yeah. So
yeah, the signing bonuses alone.
It is the largest contract in Flames history. It is. See if I remember the top of my head. So $84 million is the largest deal in Flames history. If you include Tkachuk, it is a little bit more than Tkachuk. If you think Tkachuk wasn't really a Flames deal because it was a sign and trade, then the biggest Flames contract ever was Sean Monahan, who's currently in the final year of a deal that pays him $44.625 million. So it is almost $40 million more than Sean Monahan's making with the Flames. From a length perspective, it is, depending on whether or not you count the Tkachuk deal, it's an 8-year deal, which is either outright the longest deal the Flames have ever made or tied with Tkachuk. The second longest one was Sean Monahan, who got 7 years. Again, this is the final year of that deal. And in terms of AAV, in terms of cap value, $10.5 million is the largest Flames deal ever signed. It beats both Tkachuk's deal with Florida and the one spiritually I feel is the biggest Flames deals. Matthew Tkachuk's previous Flames deal was $7 million for 3 years. $7 million each year for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he was tied with the gentleman who had a $7 million cap hit for many, many years. You might have heard of him. Hockey Hall of Famer Jerome McGinley. So
12, right? Yeah.
Hockey Lube, unfortunately, never made $7 million. That's a shame. He was good. But yeah, Jerome McGinley, previous mate 7. So in terms of the Flames, wanting to not have to have a Jonathan Huberdeau, will he, won't he saga looming over the entire year, and based on the summer they just had, I can see why they wouldn't want to do that.
It was a smart thing for Huberdeau to do, because
if you're Huberdeau, are you going to get a better deal than that?
You just had a 115-point season. You just switched teams. You have no idea how you're going to play with your new team. An injury could derail it. All that jazz. It was not, if he was looking for a payday, it was not in his best interest to go into the season without a contract. Financially, it made the most sense for him. And trust me, his agent's very public and has his own podcast, but he's his agent for a reason. And he got him a great deal. And it was good for Huberdeau, because there was no guarantee. If he puts up 82 points in 82 games next year, are you paying him 10.5?
Hey,
I don't think so.
All I'm going to say is, if you're going to plug the podcast, plug it properly. On the
agent provocateur from the SDPN with Adam Wilde and our agent Alan Walsh. So
it's It's a very interesting podcast.
I
Alan
listen
Walsh,
to it all the time. So
yeah, Alan Walsh. I really enjoy Alan Walsh because Alan Walsh very famously was also the agent for the aforementioned Michael Frolik, and Alan Walsh for better or for worse. Alan Walsh is a guy who really advocates for his players. He's very public about his distaste for the hard salary cap, which you should be hating if you're any kind of a player agent. Because it lowers how much money's in the system. He also does not like how the NHL is handling brain injuries and CTE, which, again, if you are advocating for the players, you should hate because, the science behind concussions and CTE is just nasty. Just Google Chris Nowinski CTE. I believe they keep changing the name of the institute that Chris Nowinski is affiliated with. It was the something Brain Institute at Boston University. Anyway, read up on it because the science behind traumatic brain injuries is just nasty, and that's why there's a lot of discussion about how should they be taking headshots, fighting, anything out of the league entirely. As an aside, fighting is illegal. That's why there's a penalty. But I think if you want to have a discussion about whether or not all headshots, inadvertent or otherwise, should be penalized as severely as fighting is, that's not the time to do it today. But I'm willing to entertain the discussion because, human brains are weird. Like
the science is ongoing, and it's actually spearheaded by tons of former players from all sports.
The more like just over the last couple of years, just I think all the weird bullshit that people have dealt with health wise, just from getting COVID, like a relatively simple coronavirus over the last couple of years, I think have made people, and hopefully has made people a little bit more open-minded about the science around traumatic brain injuries, because brains are weird. We don't understand brains very much, but everything we learn about brains, we're going, ooh, that's weird, man. That's rough. So
I don't
check that out. But I love Alan Walsh because Alan Walsh, he stands for the things he stands for. He's a former prosecutor in Los Angeles. The guy's life story is phenomenally interesting, and the guy he's got his players' backs, and he's honest. Whether you like him or whether you like how he does things or you don't, you got to respect how he does it because he is so unabashed about his advocacy for his players and the things he believes in. It's hard not to admire the guy. And in terms of the deal he hashed out with Bradley Living, that's a damn fine deal. I think right now, it protects the player a bit more than the team. It's almost buyout proof based on how much of the deal signing bonuses. Again, I believe it's $61.5 million out of $84 million value.
Not as buyout proof as Kachuk's is. So
it's so close though. Like it's almost Lucic level. It's Lucic level buyout proof.
Kachuk's is Lucic level. Huberdeau's take like 2 notches down the ladder, like
maybe a half notch. But so it's the kind of thing where Huberdeau is 29. That he's going to be under contract for the Flames. His new deal doesn't start until next year. So we have an entire year under his $5.9 million deal before he almost doubles his pay.
Yeah, so he's 9 years. Like I know 8-year extension, but he's a Flame right now.
It's an 8-year extension that starts when he's 30 in a year.
Yeah, they only have 5 guys signed past 3 seasons. So there's a lot that could happen after this year or going forward. The Flames are in a very fluid situation. The main pieces locked in right now are Anderson, Mange, and Hubie.
Yeah, and the goalie.
And Markstrom, but they've also got the future in that planned out for.
Yeah, but I think if you're Treliving, I completely get why you do it now because you don't want to. He's good, and you got him put in the deal because you think he's very good and he can be the guy for you for the foreseeable future, and so you want to get that deal done. And if you're Treliving, like if you're the Flames, you probably go, okay. If you wait a year, maybe his AAV comes down, maybe. But if he waits a year, maybe you're having a conversation with him going to market and seeing if he can get a better deal somewhere else. So
you got to remember
there's protection either way.
He wasn't playing with the best players in Florida either. He wasn't on the same line as Barkov. He was on a line with some former Flames, Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart. He was with Sam's for most of the year, while Barkov was with Verhaeghe and Duclair. He's gonna be stapled to Lindholm, like barring some random experiment from Mr. Sutter. Huberdeau and Lindholm will be stapled together. Who their winger is, I don't know. It could be Mange, it could be Dubé, it could be Coleman, we don't know. It could be a bunch of different people, but Huberdeau and Lindholm will be stapled together.
Okay.
Lindholm is a hell of a shooter. Lindholm has the best shot on the team, and having Huberdeau being able to feed him the puck is not insignificant.
Okay,
it keeps Lindholm at a 40-goal projection for me personally.
Does anything about the Huberdeau deal make you nervous?
You have to. If you let him go, you just lost players for nothing in a one-off shot again. Like you needed to do something, and you need to have someone of significant value within your organization. I like it. I don't. Everyone's like talking about worrying. He's been a point per game player for 4 seasons. My thing is like his defensive metrics aren't great, but everyone else on the team
you mentioned this, the idea of having only a few guys locked in for a while. I think that's the important part because okay, let's be honest. Like, is Lindholm a better player than Huberdeau? Points wise, no. Defensively, yes. I think but I think overall you're going to pay for production, so you're probably going to be paying Lindholm less than Jonathan Huberdeau long term. And
Huberdeau's a good. It sets the bar though. Like
I think that's the thing for me because we'll get into this in a second. So the two contracts, I think the two most important contracts that are coming up for the Flames in a couple of years are Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin. Yes. And so your best forward is Jonathan Huberdeau. Your next best forward signed for a while is Audrey Mangiapane. And so you have a guy making 5.8 and a guy making 10.5, and all you know is, okay, Lindholm's going to fit in somewhere here.
Yeah, he's not going to go over. He's not going over Huberdeau. And I think one will go over Huberdeau for as long as it took to go over Iginla.
Yeah, so I think if the idea is you want to set your salary structure as much as you can in terms of roles, in terms of whatever, your veteran guy who scored 115 points, who's been in the league for forever, who's done everything but win a Stanley Cup, he's your top paid guy. Yep. And then everyone falls under there. So I think for forwards, the slotting works. And for defensemen, I'm really curious what they do. I think that I know, the Salle at TSN mentioned, he talked to someone who's basically said the Flames are going to really start talking trick with Mackenzie Weegar very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie Weegar by default is the Flames' best defenseman. Well, it's not by a lot, but he's probably the best defenseman.
Well, the Flames have their long-term deal that they signed Anderson to compare a bit. Point total wise, Anderson's actually had better point totals. Weegar has way better defensive.
But Weegar's 4 years older.
That as well. So Weegar's going to get UFA years paid. And
that'll upscale his pay a bit. But that sets the ceiling, though.
But it sets a baseline for the team. Like if we're paying Rasmus,
you're not the baseline, man. That sets the ceiling.
The Anderson, I'm talking Anderson's.
No, yeah, Anderson sets like the median, but I think
Weegar will be more than that at least, but how much more based on production versus defensive acumen?
But especially with Hannafin coming up for a new deal, Weegar signed to whatever deal he gets, and I assume he's going to sign something, or the Flames are going to try to get him to sign something before the season begins.
Yeah.
Once you get Weegar done, you got your goaltender signed for a while. You got your best center or your best forward in Huberdeau signed for a while, and your best defenseman signed for a while,
and then 2 right shot defensemen signed for over 4 years.
Yeah. So then your slotting fits, and then it's just a matter of finding who fits around them.
Well, and then this year's important too because the Flames are so deep on defense, they eventually might look at moving one, depending how everything slots out.
I don't know if you're going to find a more salary efficiency though. Like, I think that's my big issue with that.
It depends how the season actually goes. How the on ice results dictate your moves. So
okay, here's a side question for you. So the Flames blue line looks fairly well set, at least for the next year or so, because they got what?
At least two.
They got the right.
They've got Anderson, Weegar. Well, Weegar for one, but Anderson, Weegar, Tanev, and then Zadorov, Shillington, Hannafin.
Yeah,
that's a great top six.
And they have a couple of years for Zadorov, so that gives them a bit of time. And if the idea is, if you're thinking, I could just thinking out loud. If you look at the Flames depth chart and their prospect guys in goal, you got Wolf coming, and maybe he might not be a starter right away, but in a year or two, maybe he takes over for Vladar, and then he can start spelling off Markstrom as Markstrom gets deeper into his 30s. That makes sense. For forwards, you got Connor Zary, who's going to be pushing for a job pretty soon. He had a very, very good second half of the season. Not quite Coronato good, but relative to his position in the organization, quite a good second half. He was very good in the last 6-7 weeks of the season. So he's the center making a push. You got a Pelche who will be potentially a middle six guy this season if he has a good camp. And if not this season, next season, you have Coronato who potentially could turn pro in the spring. So you know who your next people up in terms of your goaltender and your three main forward positions. And then you have Rory Cairns. You got some secondary guys on the forward ranks pushing.
Jack Beck, baby.
You have more question marks on defense organizationally than any other position.
And the one thing I like is that Zadorov and Chillington are both 2 years, right? You see how they do this year, see how they do. And then next year, at any point in time, you can negotiate at any point. You're not limited by you signed a 1-year deal. We can't talk till January. As soon as the clock ticks over, they could potentially renegotiate again. Not likely. But if they go 2 years down the line, where's Kuznetsov? Where's Jeremy Poirier? They're 2 years into their stock and they should be pushing for the time.
I think these deals, I think the trades and the signings that Flames have made make it very challenging for Connor Mackey or Juuso Välimäki to really come in and be considerable NHL players, which, it is what it is. But I think it's an acknowledgement that maybe the next guys up aren't quite ready yet, and they might not be able to come in and help in as much ways as they could. And to be honest, at least one of those guys between Nick Milosh, Välimäki and Mackey, one of those guys is probably your 7, unless they ask Michael Stone again. And as an aside, okay, we'll get to that in a second. We'll get into the Stone of it all in a second. But so they're going to have one of those guys as their 7. They're going to get a pretty good AHL group, and I think they've done a good job. I think, but as you said, buying Kuznetsov and Poirier some time.
Yeah, they've got time. They don't need to rush.
I think you want to hopefully have one of those guys look like he can push for some NHL time by like mid-season of a second season. But it's not something you need to have.
There's one more defenseman I personally like that no one ever mentions, and that's Ilya Salaviov. And like I said, I'm talking about replacing depth third pair guys here.
He's your 7.
Yeah, well, that's
his ceiling. His ceiling might be a 7, but he'll never break the bank.
Well, that's like he's a good you still need those pieces to compete with the cap. They've got their top end guys. If they get Uyghur signed, they've got and we tend to forget Anderson and Hanifin are young yet. They are on the south side of 26. There's a lot of runway left with both of them.
Here's my question for you, young man.
Yes.
So Michael Stone lives in Calgary, is in the Stampede Parade. He's a Calgary boy. My guess is if he's playing anywhere in the NHL next year, he's playing in Calgary.
It's that or League Min in Vegas.
Here's my question for you though. So let's just say he's like the rumor that won't go away, and it's usually people on Twitter going, he, they're going to announce Stone soon. I don't know that they are. I don't know that they're not. Yeah. All I know is the same kind of thing happened last summer, and then he ended up signing for League Min and sticking around all year as the 7. He's a very good 7 last year. Very good 7. Outperformed his contract by a country mile and barely played, but was always ready. And so here's my thing. What if they sign him and they throw him on waivers? Because my thing is I think he's a Calgary guy. His family's in Calgary. Kids are in Calgary. Families in Calgary. Calgary. That's why he's willing to play for as little as he was, because he has roots here and he loves the city. Will he clear waivers at League Min based on his body of work last year?
I think no. I think he's a veteran. He wouldn't mind him in your locker room if you're a younger team that needs to backfill positions and you're not completely there. I mean, I'd take him. His metrics were terrible pre-Sutter. Okay, they were bad. They were very, very bad. I trashed him a lot.
A lot of guys were though.
I trashed him a lot. I was unfair to him. He picked it up. He simplified his game. He quit rushing was the main.
He's a metronome. He's
but
he'll give you 12 minutes a night and they'll be good minutes.
Here's the thing. Multiple players from Calgary's blue line are going to have to clear waivers. They can't all stay. Yeah. They have to. So they have to either try and get an asset for someone before they waive them for nothing, someone with a little bit of term and maybe a bit of potential under their name, possibly.
There are going to be,
but
just right now, let's see, Dennis Gilbert is a quasi NHLer. He's what Ryan Pinder would call a quad A guy. Good offense. Defensively, he's okay.
I think him and Milosh start in the money.
But like the Flames are going to have between 2 and 4 guys who could legitimately play in the NHL.
Yeah, in the American League, try to stick it to the American League. It's you know what? Based on they lost Tanev last year. Like Tanev was playing so hurt, and they didn't have the replacements. 04? Who didn't you just write an article on Brennan Evans? Did you just write an article on
Brennan Evans? In Flames history, Brennan Evans is the only player who's played postseason games but never played a regular season game for the Flames ever.
Exactly. So the organizational depth is worth it. All I got to do is clear waivers once, and you can put them down there, and you know they're there in case of emergency.
It's a gamble though. Because like if I were them, I'm thinking.
Well, you could
Stone, put him as your 7.
The one thing Stone could do himself is what Jason Spezza did. Remember when the Leafs put Spezza on waivers, and he just straight up said to the whole entire league, "If you claim me, I'm not showing up. Like if you claim me, I retire." But Stone's a little young for that. And if Vegas were to claim him, wouldn't you want to go play with your brother? Like he's a pro. He's gonna go play wherever the heck anyone pays him to play, and someone probably should pay him to play.
He feels like someone is going to get who's going to be a PTO, maybe in Calgary. I don't know one way or the other, but he seems like someone who would be a PTO guy. And then I think by the end of the first week of camp, you'll probably have a good idea of who is in the mix to make it and who isn't.
Yep. And
I don't think he's clear though.
Expensive, like you said, with the cap squeeze right now. It's kind of like a Robin Hood situation. The rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. Like the baseline guys are signing league min $750,000 contracts because that's all that's left for them to scrape and grab. So like Calgary's nice. Calgary pays their depth guys a bit more. They pay Kevin Rooney 1.3. They got Trevor Lewis at 800,000. So like they go a bit more over the bottom tier. I bet you I bet money.
Here's a crazy ass idea for you. I
love crazy.
Okay. If you're Michael Stone could probably make more money somewhere else outside of Calgary, right?
Yes, he would.
Okay. So if you're Michael Stone, would you be willing to play for like he probably could be getting like $1 million change, right? Like low million-ish, right?
Yeah, I below right now, just with the how many teams are over the cap.
So you're thinking like probably like 900, 800, whatever.
Yeah.
If you were him,
yeah.
Okay, let's play this game. Who says no? Michael Stone, 1 year, league minimum with a no move clause.
Oh no move. No, I would never sign a league min player to a no move clause. Nope.
No move clause ensures that he can't be waived, so he's basically stuck as your 7 all year, and he has a guarantee that he's your 7 at least all year.
You better be one of my best players if you have a no move clause attached to you for any reason, or you've been
the only reason I would dangle that. The only reason I could dangle that is going if you're thinking he could make more somewhere else, and you want to keep him, but you want to keep your cap hit down. He's a league min, and you'd be able to squeeze him down from like $1 million or 900 down to 750.
You just, I fundamentally that I would never. I would never even entertain the possibility that maybe signing bonus. No, not even then. You got our outside rookie contracts. You got to be pretty dang good to get a signing bonus. So it's just not in his cards. I think some team will play him. I think he'll go play somewhere else. I really
should play. He was really good. He was good last year.
What, like 30?
He was. Yeah, like he was good. He was good, and he was good. Like when the Flames needed him, when they broke glass and went, "Oh no, what do we do?" They broke glass and they had Michael Stone to fall back on. Few teams in the entire league,
times last year,
few teams in the league had an insurance policy as good as Michael Stone.
And who's got a young defense that they want to test out, and they could put Stone in the press box? He'll gladly collect his NHL paycheck and play 20 games a year. He just did that.
He's the perfect 7.
If he's the perfect 7, because he'll give you exactly what you expect. You're not trying to develop him. He's too good for the minors. It's where he's at. I've turned into a big depth Stone guy. Daryl Sutter's changed the way I viewed hockey, and now these depth guys, I see value in them in different ways.
Honestly, man, like once I started getting into the locker room and getting to know some of the players and sort of some of the roles, I've I think you need to have the right people with the right mindset to be your backup goalie, to be your 13, 14 forward, and to be your seventh defenseman. Because you need guys who do not mind that they're not playing a ton because they value the time they get. They don't feel entitled, but they're hungry. Like Dan Vladar,
guys, right?
Yeah,
like Jordan plays, but he's fourth line guy, but they've got a spot for him because he is the glue to their Carolina locker room.
But Dan Vladar last year, Dan Vladar was so happy that the Flames wanted him and that the Flames got him and basically said, Dan, here's your job.
Yeah, you're our backup. Like, cool. We want you to be our backup. Yeah. We're giving you an NHL job. We specifically went and grabbed you.
Yeah. And honestly, him and Markstrom and the goaltending team, they basically said, Dan, your job is to make sure that Jacob Markstrom's awesome next year. So your job is to make sure he's fresh and to push him, but make sure that when he needs a night off, you're there to be awesome. And it was. They were you were in a tandem, and the guy you're backing up finishes second for the Vezina.
It is.
You're in the Jennings conversation all year.
It's hard for a rookie goalie to earn the trust of Daryl Sutter to play as many games as he did. That is if you look at the track record of Daryl and his seasons and how often
I think it's tough.
What he did last year
coming off the year the Flames had in 2021,
yeah,
I think
so depressingly ended.
Yeah, it was a bad year and as bad in as many ways you can. And I think the Flames, in some ways, were risk averse to try different things, and they could have gone out and they could have gotten 30-year-old backup goalie. They could have gone out and found themselves a Jamie McLennan. Someone reliable with minimal upside.
And
they went the other way.
Jonas Hiller, the Brian Elliott, the 10 years ago.
Chad Johnson. Don't forget about Chad Johnson.
Chad had a good year here. It's his best year he played in the league.
That was a good
year he played in the league.
But that's they could have gone for, let's be honest, boring, low ceiling, high floor, safe picks. They went with a kid who barely played the NHL before, and he was awesome.
Yeah.
But I think you need to have the right types of people, the right types of personalities to be your 7 or 8 guys,
and
your
if
depth guys who never play, because they have to be ready.
Here's a question for you: if Wolf pushes, not maybe next year, but a year after, Wolf pushes, you still got him as an RFA. Do you get the same value back for him?
I don't think Dan Vladar is here past this season.
But no, that's not the question. Do you think they get more value than they paid for him? Because they paid a 3rd round pick for him. Do you see anything bigger than that coming back?
I think you can get a second for him. Or if you get a third,
I think if he has another
I think you get at least a third. If you only get a third for 2 years of Dan Vladar, it's worth it. If you get anything more, then your asset management is going up. I don't think Dan Vladar is here past 22-23.
If you get a third back, you didn't pay anything for him. You just got him for 2 years, and
you just used the contract slot for 2 years.
The pick back.
Yeah.
Like the Dan Vladar acquisition.
If the only thing that you accomplish with acquiring Dan Vladar is finding a guy to keep Markstrom fresh and buying 2 years of development time to get Wolf ready, it is worth it.
Oh, every penny of that 3rd round pick. And if he has a great year this year, like same or level, there's going to be a team looking for a young goaltender that might if he's
merely fine, if he's the same as he was next year, if he doesn't take a step, I think he easily get a 3rd rounder back.
Like, how much do you see young goalies go? Like Cam Talbot left the Rangers. Georgiev just got a 3rd and a 5th from Colorado.
Played a bit more than Vladar has so far, but yeah, you're not wrong.
But like the market, you can get more back. So I love that. That's one of my favorite moves Brad did going into last year, was the backup goalie. I was a little iffy on the Zadorov and the Branson of it all, but Daryl took care of that for me. So yeah, we're all good.
Yeah. I'm very curious what ends up happening next few weeks, because we're a little bit less than a month away from beginning of rookie camp.
Oh, rookie camp. I think
we're
5-6 weeks from training.
I think the second Wednesday or second Thursday in September is when rookies report. Then they head to Penticton. They have a week in Penticton for a weekend basically in Penticton. Then a day off. Then I believe the Wednesday after that or Thursday after that, main camp opens, and then we're off and running. And then before you know it, we're going to be talking about the Battle of Alberta 2.0 in the playoffs this year.
Oh,
we got it again.
We got to win this one. We gotta win.
Do it again. That was too much fun.
How long was the wait again? 30 years?
I don't want to think about how long it was.
It was too long.
32 years.
This was the first iteration in my lifetime, and I'm 28. So, yeah, I don't really want to wait till I'm 56 to see that again.
It's been a weird enough few years that we deserve back-to-back battles Alberta in the playoffs. So,
well, especially because the dynamic, it's a completely different team. Like, say what you want, Calgary is a completely different team up front, and even with Uyghur on the back end. So it's all different. This entire year is I'd say half blank slate.
What's the old saying, my friend? Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
All I'll say is I was very privileged and lucky to grow up in this market. I'm old, so I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, getting like the tail end of the glory days of the 80s Oilers and Flames. Holy crap. That was some fun hockey to watch as a kid. And
we don't talk about the 80s Flames enough because they were the second best.
I don't think it's possible to talk about the 80s Flames enough.
They were the second best team in the NHL for pretty much the whole decade.
Yeah. And you know what
the first best team played up the friggin' road.
But you know what a lot of it was, though? A lot of it was keeping up with the Joneses. The Oilers do X, Y, and Z. The Oilers get players from the WHA. The Oilers get players from wherever. Flames got to get creative and find players to push them.
They got their European influx was huge for them. The Magic Man, Hockenlund, like the players they had playing.
Yuri Herdina, man, don't discount Yuri Herdina.
I'm not.
The Flames managed to find some damn fine Russians, some damn fine Swedes, some damn fine Czechs. They were one of the first teams to really go all in on U.S. college hockey. Joe Nieuwendyk, Gary Suter, Joel Otto.
Goal rookie season, Joe Nieuwendyk. Like, geez, that's insane. That's insane, by the way. Anyways, we'll
get into the history of it.
Train went off the tracks, players. We got nostalgic, folks.
I like the Huberdeau deal. I like what the Flames have done in terms of. I think if they can get Uyghur to a competitive contract, I think they basically set the salary structure for the next few years, and I think it goes a lot. Like, I think the idea of if you have your planks, if you're building a deck, you're building a house, you're building anything out of wood, you got to lay down your big planks first, and then you fill in the gaps. And I think they signed their goalie.
Yeah.
Big plank. You sign your top line winger. Boom, another plank. If you get Uyghur done this offseason, whap, another plank down, and then that's all your big business. And then you can just fill in the gaps.
Even if Uyghur doesn't get signed pre-year after all those years in Florida, he'll play in one Battle of Alberta, hear that crowd, and I don't like going from that to that. I don't know if you can turn that down. Like, the crowd alone, like the Canadian crowd. Now the media pressure is going to be crazy, but the crowd alone, the Canadian crowds are special. Whether it's Calgary, whether it's Toronto, whether it's Montreal, whether it's Vancouver, I don't care. The Canadian crowds are different. They've got that passion inside of them.
We're horribly biased. We mean no disrespect to the fine people of South and Central Florida. You're loud in the playoffs. You've been loud. You've had reasons to be loud the last few years. Canadian crowds are loud when nothing's happening.
Yeah, like you could be down 6-0. Like I was at a Flames game once. David Schlemko, they were losing. Schlemko did a spinorama behind the net, and the whole crowd, the entire Saddle Dome, started chanting, "Let's go Schlemko." For like the next 20 minutes.
The Calgary Flames.
It was a waiver claim.
Calgary Flames fans turned David Hale, the Hailstorm, the man who set the NHL record for most
games without a goal.
Score a first goal to begin a career. They turned the Hailstorm into a freaking meme before it was really big on the internet, because people
were a thing.
God bless David Hale. What a great guy.
I remember that. Because it took him like 3 years to score his first goal, didn't it?
I think it was like 150 something games. Like, I'll double check that, but
it was a lot more than that.
It spanned several teams too.
Yeah.
The Hailstorm.
Yeah.
With that, we're never gonna top the Hailstorm, so we might as well stop now. FlamesNation Radio has been brought to you by DoorDash and by Eau Claire Distillery. Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. We'll be back in a week to talk about the World Juniors and how they're going so far. More Coronato talk, and maybe we alluded to it this week. Next week, presuming that he doesn't sign in the next week at 9:00 on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. Brad,
stop it.
Then we'll have a discussion about what do you pay Mackenzie Weegar? What would be what would be a good salary? What would be too much, too little, too long, too short, too whatever? We've already talked about the first two planks. We'll talk about the third plank next week. For Shane, I'm Ryan. Thank you very much for joining us on FlamesNation Radio. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.